Okay.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are we all? I
Good, good.
really
Well, good.
good. Thanks so much for being part of this really important conversation, especially in light of Men's Health Month this month, and also in the midst of celebrating International Men's Day. So I brought you here for this important conversation because I feel there is a need to bridge the gap um, for men in terms of their experience with women that they're sharing their lives with that are going through perimenopause and menopause. So it is quite important for men as well. And I feel men are being missed out a lot in this conversation or even across the conventional setting, within health promotion, across social media, you name it. So I wanted to get the conversation going, and we have met before to talk about some of the core issues. But today is all about really bringing it all together and enabling us to have a bit more of an understanding and awareness of what's happening, and especially for me, from a woman's point of view as well, just to see exactly how we can support men and bridge those gaps. Um, we do know, perimenopause and menopause is quite a transition for women, and women are faced with quite a change, in terms of the estrogen. So it's quite a substantial hormonal change for women and their identity. We know that women are leaving their jobs. We know that women are also ending relationships as well. So I just know also that men are going through their own experience with it too. And what I wanted to do is really gauge, uh, your experience with it as well. So, firstly, Jason Chan, I just wanted to ask you as well, just
Yes,
to first up today, um,
sure.
do men actually understand menopause and what some of the common misconceptions and assumptions surrounding it are?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I've spoken to many of my work colleagues who are, husbands as well as fathers and grandfathers, and not just work colleagues, but friends and family too. And yeah, it is something that they know only the basics, like they hear, hot flushes, mood swings, things along that line. But what I did find, Sharon, what was interesting after joining many forums, I joined many forums and Facebook groups as well just to hear from the men's side and what they're going through and learning more about menopause and
Yeah.
perimenopause. In fact, I used to think it was called premenopause. I didn't even know it was called perimenopause until recently, once I
Yep.
joined the groups and forums. I went, I had it wrong all this time myself. So
Yeah.
it is really interesting. From what I've seen, it feels like only 50% of men really know about perimenopause and menopause, and only a few of the things like hot flashes, mood swings, the energy, and sometimes sensitive and dryness. So they don't
Yes.
know a lot of things like about brain fog. I didn't even know about that. And frozen shoulders. That was
Yes.
really new to me too. So yeah, it's quite interesting. But I do see there are many men who want to learn and understand to better support their partners, friends, and family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess with your experience, do you sort of have any suggestions on ways that men can be more educated, or how do you think men can understand exactly what it is? Because I know they don't really, like you said, the term perimenopause, you didn't even know that, thought it was premenopause.
Mm.
What do you think needs to be done, in the
Um,
wider, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Sharon. So when I was doing my research, I did notice a lot of leading specialists and researchers in the menopause side of things. They always targeted women. They never spoke to the audience as men and women. So even educational videos that I was watching on YouTube, I was really surprised that they were just only focusing on
Yeah.
women, and they never said, "Oh, ladies and gentlemen, like this is what menopause is, or perimenopause. These are the things to look out for. These even treatments. I didn't even know HRT existed until one of my work colleagues told me it's the best thing ever." And I went, "What is HRT? I didn't know about that."
Yeah.
And my wife is going through perimenopause, and she's
Yep.
actually studying traditional Chinese medicine.
Oh,
So she's
great.
also telling me alternative ways as well besides HRT, like using traditional Chinese medicine, AP therapy, which is using bees in a medicinal way. So there's
Yep.
quite a lot of treatments available, which I had no idea about. And one of
Absolutely.
my friends is also nutrition, and she told me nutrition is a big part of it as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's so many complementary medicines and alternative and holistic treatments in adjunction to, HRT and MHT. The old traditional HRT was, more synthetic hormone, whereas now we've been introduced to, bioidentical hormones. So women are having to learn about that as well, and they're still only becoming familiar with it themselves. And there's still that misconception that HRT is synthetic, but it can be a game changer. Not everybody can take it, though. That's the other thing. So it's not a
Oh,
one size fits all. So, normally for women who have had, have got a history of estrogen positive cancer, or they have liver clearance issues, or other predisposing gut factors, or an overwhelming nervous system and inflammatory response. There's layers of that. And that's why it's really important for women to seek a practitioner who can have a look at them and individualize their treatment protocol to see if they're actually going to benefit from that as well. Thanks for that, Jason. Um,
thank you.
and John Toomey, thank you so much for being on board today as well. My question for you is, when menopause feels personal, why can symptoms sometimes be perceived by partners as rejection, criticism, or emotional attack? And how can this contribute to communication breakdown within relationships?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sharon, and I think it's something that we could explore it in so many different directions. Um, Number one is that, we tend to be, in a society where there's not a huge amount of personal responsibility running. We tend to get upset when things don't go our way, or blame people for things going wrong, or blame situations. And we get caught up in being reactive to our circumstance. But that's not a great way to live, because then in your life, you're just in react all the time, which is very stressful. But we've only got to go back a few generations to when people lived a much simpler life, and patience was something that was just mandated by our circumstance and our existence. You had to wait for food to cook. You had to wait for the fish to bite. You had to be patient if you were hunting. You had to nurture your food crops. There was, everything just took time and people were patient. But we're in this hurry up society where we're getting everything we want. And part of that is we want the people around us to behave in a certain way so that we can just stay in our own self absorbed space. But
Yeah.
we're community individuals and we're connected. And see, I see menopause as an exciting time where men can reflect on how they're conducting themselves in the world. Do they want to be in a pinball machine that's reacting to every circumstance or pressure? Or do they want to stand back and be more of an observer and have more awareness of what's going on around them? And if men understand that when women are going through perimenopause and menopause, their moods are subjected to extremes where they can just feel so frustrated, so cantankerous, so irritable that sometimes they lose control over what their vocal cords want, how they want to express things, and it can be a bit nasty. It can be harsh. But, you can walk into a room and you can say something really abusive to me. Now, in that moment, there's two things that happen. One is what you did, your action in being abusive. And the second part of it is how I choose to respond to that. I can either get upset and offended, or I can think to myself, wow, that's not like Sharon. Wonder what's going on for her, you know? And be a little bit more open to the possibility that things are not right. This is a challenge for men because if more men were able to conduct themselves that way, we'd have less psychosocial risk in the workplace. So
Mm.
this is a bit of a path for humanity to wake up a little bit and grow up a little bit and be more present in our universe and be more perceptive to what's going on around us. And so for men, when they're coming home to a wife who is, more like Godzilla than the beautiful woman that they married, it's not personal. She's
Yeah.
going through some struggle. And, I don't know if any of you have had the challenge of a parent who's losing their mind. You got to deal with that. You can't get upset with it or get impatient with it because that's not going to fix it. You've got to shift yourself to be able to adapt to that situation. The really cool part about a woman going through menopause is she's going to come out the other side of it and she's going to be ravishingly beautiful when she does.
Yeah.
And so for the men, it's like have some patience. Try to nurture the space. Do you need to run your wife a hot bath? Do you need to shout her a massage? Do you need to bring some more flowers home? Do you need to cook the meals for a little while just to not because you're trying to manipulate her, but you're just trying to open up the space around her because you've also got to be mindful of the fact that if she does say something savage to you and you react badly, she's not going to like herself later. She regrets doing that stuff, but she just doesn't have control in that moment. So this is the opportunity for the man to really stand up and be a warrior, be a bloody guardian in your home, and have some common sense to realize this is not permanent. Your wife's just having an internal battle right now, and you can be bigger than being a petulant teenager who needs to react to everything that's going on.
Yeah, that's so true. John, because I hear what goes on in the workplace often. Do you think support needs to take place in workplaces in every sector for men to maybe provide them with a little bit more education or some other sort of groups or where they can chat with other blokes about it and also get maybe some professional support there too, whether they're talking to a leader about andropause and menopause, or what do you think some of the solutions are there for men who feel isolated and want to help, but they just can't because they want to maybe throw off some ideas to somebody else as well?
Well, I don't know whether you know what the cost is to a corporation if a senior executive is going through a divorce. It's horrendous because they're distressed, their attention's not on what they're meant to be doing. There's a lot of time get consumed. But it's the same thing down on the shop floor. If one guy's going through a divorce and he's trying to navigate his way through the drama of it, his mind's not on the job, but he's also talking to his mates around him, so their mind's sort of not on the job either. So those things have a negative impact on productivity right across the corporation. So it's a small cost for a company to invest in some education, to bring someone in to educate the workforce on what andropause is, what menopause is, what perimenopause is, what to look out for, how to respond, what you can do to help the situation. It can be really cool. It only needs to be a 1 hour seminar plus some resources. And then as men start to navigate it, even if they're not noticing it coming, their mates will be able to say to them, hey, do you think your wife's going through menopause? And get support that way because, groups of men are really good at supporting each other if they know what to do, if they know what's going on. They're really good at it.
Yeah, yeah, very true. Thanks for that, John. Jason Sherry. Welcome, Jason. Um,
And sure.
the question for you is, when women are emotionally overwhelmed and exhausted during this phase of life, how can men best support them based on your own experiences and observations?
Look, I think a little bit similar to what John said. It's, sort of trying to, I guess, gauge the situation as much as possible, and then sort of sitting back, absorbing it all, and trying to sort of make the right decisions around supporting your partner, whether it be through, things around the house, the physical side of things as well, and trying to make sure that you make the environment as comfortable as possible for them. And also, too, I think, our own reaction as males has a significant effect on your partner as well, because, they know that, I guess, they know what they're going through, and they know that's, it's definitely having an effect on you. So maybe, obviously things like just supporting them, but also letting them know that you're okay with it, and, and trying to sort of embrace it all and acknowledge the fact that it's a situation that you're both going through. So I guess that communication as much as possible and understanding, generally I find helps us, as much as possible. It doesn't always work, because, there's situations where, things can get pretty, nasty and pretty hard, and all that sort of thing. And you go from being the best person in the world one minute to being a villain the next. So, we as guys have to adapt to that as well. But I think a lot of what John said earlier is prevalent in what goes on. And I think as guys, it's just about being as supportive and understanding and educating ourselves as much as possible to help understand the situation. And I think that's sort of the best way I've sort of found to navigate around it. It's not easy, because there are days where you yourself as a guy, are copping the brunt of it, and it might go for a week, a month, longer. You know what I mean? And then it's just about sort of trying to understand that, you're there to support as much as possible. I guess that's pretty much it. But I've got obviously, my significant other, at the time was going through it. I've got a lot of female friends that are going through it at the moment, and everyone's story is a little bit different. But obviously most of it's very similar. And I think, the other thing is too with guys, we talked about what forums are available for guys to, and I think one of the things is, for me, where I really understood, apart from my everyday life, that I was subjected to sort of seeing what's going on in my own personal world with a partner, but also to being involved in sport, and just being around a lot of guys my age who have obviously wives and partners that are going through that. And I think there's definitely a massive gap with the lack of education. And, a lot of guys just don't understand it. And I think, sport is a wonderful platform to help guys understand it. In what way that takes place, I'm not really sure. But there's definitely opportunity there for a broader understanding of menopause and how men can deal with it as well and support their partners.
Being from that sporting arena or sporting side, do you feel sports here in Australia and even overseas can make some sort of contribution to helping males understand menopause, seeing that maybe there's obviously a cohort of men in that age group with women? I mean, 50%, over 50% of the population is going through menopause. So that's quite a huge population. So, of those men that are with those women, do you feel sport can help in some way to raise awareness? Because it's there, young people are very, I've got teenage boys and a 21-year-old, like they love their sports, all their sports, and they're quite easily, manipulated by that. Do you feel if that awareness was raised within our sports industry, do you feel that would have an impact on how men would deal with it, so they wouldn't go through the relationships that have broken down because men haven't known any better on how to, manage a wife or partner going through menopause? Do you think that would have some
Look,
impact?
yeah, look, absolutely, because one thing with sport is it carries, you've obviously got the athletes themselves, so usually, let's talk about winter sports. We're talking about footy and soccer and so forth. Generally speaking, these guys are only a bit, they're playing at senior levels who are starting to get in those relationships. And yeah, look, their partners will probably go through a little bit later in life. But generally speaking, if there's an education process, they're starting to get that nice and early before it actually happens. Okay. Second to that is then you've got people who are involved in the sport, whether they be coaches or administrators, who are also, they're the target basically who are dealing with it right now. So you're getting an audience that's both for them yet to happen and for those that are actually going through it. So if you're using sport as a platform, you're hitting such a broad audience that it's carrying a lot of weight. And guys, as John said earlier, when men get together and they can actually understand what's going on, usually they do support each other. And I've seen that through many things in sport, not just anything to do with menopause, but many other things, whether it be divorces, whether someone's ill in the family, or many other things. So generally speaking, guys do help each other out when they get to a point where they're actually understanding what's actually going on and what needs to happen. But at the moment, the gap is not really understanding what's going on and not really understanding what needs to happen because of that. But sport has a huge audience, and there's such great opportunity for any organisation to use sport as a platform to let people know about all of this. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah,
how that happens, I don't know, but
yeah.
there's a great opportunity there. Yeah.
Well, there would be quite a great impact as well. I mean, you look at kids today following their athletes that they love. They're eating well, they're exercising. I mean, more than what the boys did when I was 17. I don't remember them investing in so much into their bodies and their health and their sport. Might have been the area I was in, I don't know. But if we could educate younger men as well about what perimenopause and menopause is. I mean, my boys only know about it because their mum has been in this area for 20 years. So they've been used to the conversations, whereas not a lot of people know about it. And that leads me to ask you, Jason Chan, because you're very much part of social media and your role at the radio station that you work on as well. How do you think how do you think social media and that the broader broadcasting side of things can kind of change that male narrative around the humorous side of perimenopause and menopause? Because what I'm seeing, and I don't know if that's coming across your algorithms as well, is I'm seeing a lot of blokes. I mean, some are quite funny, but they're making a lot of jokes about what menopause is all about and what their wives are going through. And they're emulating, their wives and, talking about how their brain fog and their hot flushes, etc. How do you think we need to sort of look at social media and your presence to make a change to that narrative?
Yeah, it's back to what you said earlier, Sharon. I think it needs to be more education around it, because I have come across that, memes and things like that, and
Yeah.
just short little skits where they're making fun of menopause, which I don't agree with, to be honest, Sharon.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to take a more compassionate and empathetic look
Yeah.
at it, and we can have people talk about it, and more men talk about it would be even better.
Yeah.
Because it is, I don't know. Every time I do see things posted from a male, it's not nice. It's just not nice. I really don't like that kind of postings. What I see currently, more awareness would be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We're here
So,
to raise the awareness, aren't we? So to
mm.
inform and educate. Whereas I feel the male role in this has been to make fun of it pretty much.
Yeah,
And it gets shared around quite a lot. And maybe that wrong messaging can get misconstrued by the younger population too, who will eventually go through
exactly.
the same thing as well. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And that is one thing we didn't speak about today. It's about children. Um, I,
Yeah.
I, I mean, men, yes, definitely, but even teenage children that may not understand what's happening with their mother. The mum may be, going through it, but they have no idea, and they may even blame themselves. Oh, maybe I triggered mum to be, not happy today or something like that. But they don't realize
Yeah.
that she's going through the perimenopause, for example. So even children, somehow, if we can even reach the children, not just the man, that'd be amazing.
Absolutely. Some education maybe beginning in the school setting. They teach us, well, I mean, we were taught safe sex and reproduction, in high school. Now I think they're doing it in primary school, which they are now. Maybe looking at the transition too, and learning about what menopause is and how that is a transition in life. John Toomey, I just wanted to ask you, how do you think menopause actually changes men as well? I'm not sure if I can hear. Just unmute yourself, John.
Beg your pardon, guys. I'm sorry for that.
No
Um,
worries.
I've been chatting to James Davis about this a bit in London. James runs an organisation called the Midlife Mentors and supporting men through that menopause change or the andropause change. And it might not be as significant physically, but there is a period where men start to move out of midlife into elderhood. And in many traditional cultures, that's celebrated. There's a transition point there, whereas in our culture, it's not recognized. We just go sort of screaming ahead and all of a sudden find out one day, gee, I look old. But it is a real moment for men to stop and take a breath and pause and go, hang on a minute, where do I stand in life now? And especially if you're a grandparent, because your role changes. You shift from being a parent to being a mentor to your kids while they parent and being this loving uh, extra person in the lives of your grandkids. Um, you were talking about sports clubs before, and I actually believe that we should take our eyes off the AFL clubs and the NRL clubs. They're busy. They can't do much. They're just busy. But community sports clubs are a whole different kettle of fish.
Mm,
They are they are becoming the churches of the 21st century where people are gathering, and I believe that they can do a lot more to open their doors to gather a lot more people. And I've been saying to local footy clubs, for example, because I was very heavily involved in getting women's football off the ground. And, that's saved a lot of footy clubs because now there's women and men in the clubs and there's a lot more socialisation happening in the clubs.
yeah.
But there's also lots of opportunities then for older men to educate younger men. And, I was doing a president's lunch talk at a Chuka Footy Club a couple of years ago. And it's amazing the club's very, very successful. And every senior player in the football club has a coaching duty in the junior ranks. And they've got older men around the club who are just mingling in and out, and they're being supportive and they're helping the young guys to step up and grow up a little bit. Now, adding that some additional education, because they bring speakers in to speak, bringing that additional education in to support men to have greater understanding of their own transitions as well as the transitions of their wives, that's bringing the education into a community level. Yeah.
Mm,
And uh, and I think that we've got to be mindful of the fact that things change, societies change, and elements in society change. For example, like our food has changed. I sat down and spoke with my mum when she was alive about menopause, and she said, "Oh, I think I went through it. I don't know. Maybe I did. Oh, I don't know. But her diet was very, very simple.
yeah.
Veggies, meat, some rice occasionally, hardly any sugar. She didn't
Yeah.
drink much alcohol. And so, maybe a lot of the advanced and enhanced menopause symptoms are related to that as well. So where's that going to go in the future?
Yeah.
So we've got to keep educating and evolving. And the exciting part about all of this is that all of these things that stimulate challenges in society amongst families and communities and relationships is the stimulus for all of us to evolve. And part of evolving is looking at ways that we can get our communities to evolve. And I think supporting sports clubs is a huge part of this. But,
Yes.
and the sports club that I'd like to see in the future is also a sports club that has open mic nights for the kids in the community who are not into sport, but they're into music. So
Yeah.
we bring everybody in,
Yeah.
create space for everybody to be part of this community hub that's really happening. Because, we got rid of the corner pubs years ago by jacking up the price of beer and making it difficult. But these clubs are becoming the place where we can support and share information. And then the older men in the communities can start to recognize their time to step into more eldership and transition out of that place where, they're in the middle age.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. I think, look, we all congregate. I mean, I've spent years in footy clubs and soccer clubs and sitting there and, just watching. And I think, having some additional, there was always events, but having that additional sort of support there as well, I think it's important and vital. And you're right, it's emerging as well. Um, Anything else? Jason, Sherry, did you want to sort of share a little bit about your journey? Just give us a little bit of, sort of maybe um, how we can support men further from your experience above and beyond always sporting events. But I'm just being mindful of the time as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, Anything else that you wanted sort of to add to that because you have had experience, in a relationship that you're happy to sort of share your
Yeah,
thoughts.
look, I think, I guess my own experience and my own challenges through my situation obviously gave me a better understanding of, menopause and how it affects women, but also too how it affected me. And I guess just, I think if we can reach out, obviously the Sporting Club Forum is one that is available to us and a great platform as we discussed
Yeah,
now, to get that, but also too, I think just reaching out to your mates that
yeah,
we've got, I guess if you're 52 or 53, most likely that most of your mates are around that age group. So just reaching out to them and seeing how they're going, and that obviously you're speaking to them, they're speaking to you, you're sharing the load by discussing what's going on at home and how your wife or your partner is, and they're discussing about how their wife and their partner is, or whatever it may be. And I guess as guys, if we do that, if we're reaching out to our friends, and it becomes a bit of a cycle. And that way, we can support each other better, and understand each other because, as I said, although
do you feel that your past experience has actually been an advantage now for how you can offer support to your friends and how you can be there as that as a bridge?
yeah, look, absolutely. I think from the point of view of, I guess understanding now through the experiences that I've had and having, that there's a lot more layers to it than what's on the surface. So actually understanding the depth of it all, or as much as possible, helps me then obviously understand it myself by experiencing it. But then also you can, use that opportunity as well to share that information to friends who are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Because as we discussed earlier, a lot of guys know this at surface level, or it might be someone, a friend of mine, for example, he's just starting to experience all of this now. So I guess the knowledge that I've got, I can sort of impart some of
Yeah.
that to him and say, hey, well, this is what to probably expect, and
Yeah.
perhaps this is a way of looking at it from a different perspective. And yeah, so it's definitely feel a little bit more confident in being able to support someone else or other people around it.
Yeah.
But also too, just understanding, my female friends as well a little bit more as well. When they do get a little bit moody and have the symptoms and do you go through those things, you sort of go, okay, well, obviously they're going through that. So let's embrace that and deal with it in the best way possible. So yeah, definitely the experience has taught me to to understand it better, a little bit more in depth, and be able to sort of support those around me a little bit better as well.
Thanks for that, Jason. John, just before we close off with you, I just wanted to ask you, what's the one thing you wish men knew about menopause better, I guess?
Well, it's not about you. Like, it's not personal. It's really not about you. It's about supporting your wife or your partner as they go through something really difficult. And if you can stop taking it personally and stop making it about you and being offended or upset or abandoned or whatever those feelings are you can have, then you can step in and actually be an active participant in the whole thing. I mean, I've actually been through it twice, and I was much better at it the second time. And the really amazing thing is that you got to start to understand that for a lot of the time while your partner's going through this, you're probably an irritation, whether you like it or not. Just the fact that you're there might be irritating for her, and so there's lots of things that you can do, and I would say to any man who's asking me for help, I would say you're not a victim of this. This is part of your life. Stop being a victim, because this is part of the transition. And so I would say to men, okay, so what can you do to be less annoying? Now, one of the realities is that just her sleep is difficult. She has trouble sleeping. She might be having hot flushes at night. She might be irritated. She might be restless. And so how can you do your bit to create the best possibility that she can sleep? Now, there's something that men do, and a lot of men do, and they get away with it for decades. And I actually think it's disgusting behavior that they should do something about it, and that is snoring. There's no reason why any man should snore or should have sleep apnea. It is poor breathing mechanics, and it can be fixed in about 2 weeks with a Buteyko breathing program. It's been around for over 100 years. It was invented by a Ukrainian doctor, and it works. But you know what? It's inconvenient to do it because you've got to set aside half an hour in the morning and half an hour at night. But if you do it, you actually cure yourself of snoring and sleep apnea. And that is a gift to everybody in your house. Now, if your wife is having trouble sleeping and you are a snorer and you are not prepared to do that work, ask your wife, would you like me to sleep in the other room? Take care of her, because the last thing you want is a partner that's going through menopause and who's sleep deprived. That's just an amplification system, So I just say to men, stop being a victim of it, be responsible, ask yourself, what can I do to make things better?
Love that, John. Yes, absolutely. Being mindful. Sleep deprivation is one of the main, I hate the word complaints, but one of the main complaints of women going through menopause. That's leading them to losing their identity, to losing their jobs, giving up their jobs, and they just can't cope. They're falling asleep on the job in the day. So they're absolutely exhausted. So Jason Chan, can I just ask you finally,
Yeah.
what's one thing couples can do to stay connected during this phase? Now, your wife is going through perimenopause and you've got a long distance relationship, haven't you?
Yes, yes, that's
So
right. Quite unique.
you can share, yeah, it is. Absolutely it is. So shed some light. What's some of the things that you do to get through that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, for example, if she's feeling quite fatigued, which is another thing, fatigue and anxious, I would give her a lot more space. So normally we talk every day, morning and night, pretty much for the last 5 years. But
Yep.
knowing this is part of it, I say to her now, like, don't feel guilty that you can't make the call tonight. I know you got a lot on your plate. So just more understanding and more patience and empathy. So
Yeah.
as John said, it's not about us. I used to take it as like,
Yeah.
oh, why is she doing this to me? But then I think, wait a minute, it's out of her control. When I educate myself more, and I became a lot more patient and more empathetic and said, oh, no, you poor thing. I know this is something you can't control. And, she's not herself. And she often does say that. She goes, I don't know what's wrong with me lately. I don't feel so good about, things. And, I just kind of like just listen as well. Just be patient, listen, and have a lot more empathy. That's how I can make it work on my end.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah,
No, no,
absolutely.
no snoring issues there because
No.
the long distance.
That's good. Yeah, of course, that's right. Yeah. Well, that whole sleep situation, I mean, even I speak to women and they can't even take their partner's breathing, so it's imagine the snoring, you know what I mean? So
Mm,
that's the other thing. But yeah, as estrogen leaves the brain so, erratically, because in perimenopause, estrogen is widely fluctuating and progesterone drops quite quickly. Once they reach menopause, estrogen drops so much, the brain's like, what the heck is happening? And goes, that's where what we call neuroplasticity. So the brain goes into chaos, like emergency sounding buttons are going off because the brain is perceiving it as a threat. So the woman feels that. So it's and it's frightening. That's where the anxiety comes from. Leads to anxiety, definitely. um Jason, Sherry, what gives you hope about relationships moving through the midlife together? So, um, you know, any hope to relationships if men are more sort of aware? There's that awareness.
Oh, look, absolutely. I think it's look, as although we're still very far away from being fully educated or as educated as we need to be, but I
Yes.
think there is, slowly there's some level of understanding. I think that just makes it a little bit easier for men to actually cope and understand what what needs to happen and the support they need to give their partner. So I think, taking that into consideration, but also too, I think it's up to the, always in the individual, and each circumstance is different. And I think it's how one adapts to this to the scenario, that will either make it or break it sometimes. But I think there's definitely hope. I mean, there's, you know, and I think women are a little bit more open about it too, and explaining to people, I'm going through this, I'm going through that. So as a partner, or as a boyfriend, or as a friend, or whatever it may be, by females also sharing their situation with the other person, it makes it a little bit more, a little bit easier to I guess navigate. And I think that's happening a little bit more. And therefore, it obviously makes the path of relationships and so forth a little bit easier. But definitely hope.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And it's
I think,
positive, yeah.
and I think we have to have more conversations like this. Jason Chan, do you feel that, have you interviewed anybody or any males going through menopause transition themselves with their partners
not
before?
as yet.
Okay.
Not as yet, but definitely
And
something I'd love to do in the future, near future.
yeah. So do you think
Absolutely.
this conversation, I mean, we've already had a conversation together, all of us, but has this recently kind of been like, I can actually, interview someone and maybe get the conversation going? Does it kind of lead you to sort of be inspired to do that?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, even today's conversation, I'm really inspired to put out some socials and, and take it the other direction. Not making fun of it, but the other
No.
way. Yeah,
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 which is what we need
the
because
other
we
way around.
we don't have that available to us. I mean, I haven't seen that in social media, my algorithms. It's the opposite, isn't it? So, yeah, I think
Exactly.
I think that raises all of our awareness, and also for me with my Men's Thrive program, because this is quite an important, and very special area for me too, because I look after men's health and men's mental health. And, we know that the suicide rates are up. We know divorce rates are up. We know that there are a lot of mental health challenges as well, silently. So we know that men are going through their own pain. Um, and I think, even myself with my program, and it's all about cardiometabolic, and basically reducing the risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. But I do take that mental health approach. But it's sometimes dipping in and asking the questions, which I try to do in my exploratory session, is how are you actually going? How are you going in all of this? Especially if they decide to open up about their partner's menopausal journey, is ask them, how are you? How are you feeling? How are you coping? And are you coping? Do you feel there's enough support mechanisms out there as well? Because I often yell out on my own socials, ask men, but men are reluctant to come in and comment, of course. They're not going to put their hand up. Some of them will email me or, send me a private message to talk about it and talk about the fact that they're going through a specific problem with their partners, and they're worried that they're going to divorce, and how to help them. The other question, John has had to leave our group discussion, but I just wanted to touch on, the whole thing about that sexual connection as well. And we've talked about it in our chat before. And I think it isn't all about that, is it? When we think about it, even though, it's a special part of your relationship. But I think that's the first thing that men think of too when it comes to talking about menopause in the workplace chats, I believe. So, probably looking at ways to raise that point of connection can be in other ways as well. If she's not feeling like sex, if she's not feeling like intimacy, which is understandable at this time, and that can actually help to improve and strengthen the overall relationship as well. What are we thinking of that? Yeah.
Look, I think it definitely is a good point to raise, and I think it's about I guess the strength of the relationship in general, and then being able to navigate around that, but also understanding it, as males, and understanding there's changes there to the body and to the thought process and everything else. And if you're supportive in other ways, intimacy can be shared in many ways. I mean, obviously the physical is the most common way that we will look at it, but there's definitely other ways of showing, levels of intimacy, I suppose. And it's just about trying to find how that works for the other person and for yourself. But yeah, look, generally speaking, I think it's something that guys struggle with big time.
Yeah.
Because they do see it as a form of rejection when their partner's not being intimate with them, and they're just a better of understanding that. Again, as we spoke about some other topics earlier, and feeling that side of things, it's just more about understanding that it's not necessarily you as a person, but it's a situation that faced with, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. It's a rejection, and that's that cycle of the landscape of the brain changing for women, and also men's hostility. The other thing I wanted to ask, as well as are you aware of andropause? And since we've been in conversation together, have you guys actually had a look at what andropause is for males, and males transition, males hormonal transition as well, which we don't talk about a lot, and you probably don't see it as much as we do for menopause. What's your thoughts on that? And do we need more awareness about it? Do you know what it is?
I personally think there's definitely needs to be some more, a lot, not just some, but a lot more awareness around it, because I think, me included, a lot of guys wouldn't have a clue.
Yep.
A lot of guys wouldn't actually understand or know that even exists. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's something that needs a lot of I guess a lot of awareness.
I'm in complete agreement with Jason myself. I didn't even know that existed until I was looking up, perimenopause and menopause, and then that popped up,
Yeah.
and I went, oh, do we also have something that goes on? Like, so I'm
Yeah.
completely into it, but there's not that much information or talk about it or discussions actually.
Yeah, no, I know. And it's leading me to take a deeper dive into it. I mean, I kind of talk to males about it in my Men's Thrive program, because when we're looking at cardiometabolic markers, I'm also assessing hormonal status to see what's going on. But, I'm raising that awareness one on one. But I think there needs to be more of even just locally or globally, an awareness of what it is. Because I think men are then, are probably, they're going through andropause, partners are going through menopause. It's such a shift between both. I mean, it's any wonder everyone's feeling chaotic, as that's happening on a physiological and psychological a scale too. So yeah, I just thought it was interesting to touch on. It's a different topic again, but really relevant to what I think men are going through at this stage of life at the same time, as we transition, from the 40s into the 50s and so forth. Women are moving into menopause earlier and perimenopause earlier as well, to let you guys know. So the age now is 37 for her to enter perimenopause. Yeah. So we take that from the US stat. So yeah, so women start to notice at a younger age the symptom changing, and sometimes it's their cycles first, or it might be the insomnia or the mood change, but they are noticing earlier. And the age for menopause, with the last period. So the last, so 12 months exactly with no bleed. The next day after that, the woman is regarded or as being post-menopausal. So 1 year no bleed, she has to be at all, not even spotting. The next day, she's postmenopausal. So the age range in America, in the US, is 52 for that. That's the age. But we know the stats here is a little bit earlier, and some women are transitioning as early as 45 and younger, 42. But if they are transitioning earlier, we call that primary ovarian insufficiency or hypothalamic amenorrhea. So women can go into an early menopause due to some physiological changes as well. So a little bit on that. Yeah, yeah. It's a huge area for consideration, and everyone is different. Everyone's journey is different. Every woman transitions through menopause on a very individual scale. So uh, you said that too, that not everyone's story is the same. Jason, Cherry, you said that you've noticed women are going through their own different experiences, and it is different. Every woman will share a different story because it's unique to their DNA, their genetics, their experiences, their environment. And there's lots of other reasons why biologically women have a different experience. Gut plays a huge role in that as well. So I want to thank you all for being part of this really important conversation. I really hope that we can get together again and explore some more of this, perhaps soon. Keep the conversation going. Maybe we can look into that in the future, um, and really help to bridge the gap, because it's such an important conversation that it's not many people are tapping into right now. So I can't wait to get this out there and really start spreading the word and having more conversations with men as well about it. And perhaps Jason Chan, when we like go on your show, we may
Yes,
have a bit of
absolutely.
a chat about it too. I'm so excited for that.
100%.
I hope to get down up there. I hope to fly up there to see you for that one.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you both, and John, who's had to leave to go to other important events for men's health. Thank you so much for being on, and I look forward to getting together with you again next time.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks for us
Thank
having
you,
us.
Sharon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. See ya.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye-bye.